but not necessary.
Perfectly said.
It does take a little bit of a leap of faith at the beginning.
We're all treading just above water. You know, that's life. I would risk drifting further and further from that light, the true person I am.
Mm-hmm.
But the reward might be way greater than me finding that light.
Why not? Why is going towards the light going away from the money?
Mm-hmm. The only person stopping you from getting that is yourself,
It's you.
or the person to the right of you who's willing to work hard. It's like, you play your cards right, that's yours.
So to let them go, you have to go through that fire. You have to experience them. And that's how you let them go. And as you let them go, they stop affecting you as much and you stop feeling them as much.
I've put in these shackles on myself, right? You know, pinned myself here, got myself by the ankles, and I get the key once I accomplish what I want to accomplish, the goals that I've set.
Right, we were talking about like the happiness now and then, and
Right.
along the way.
Like I was saying, it feels like I'm treading. You know, we're all treading just above water. You know, that's life. Life is gonna throw bullshit at us, and you know, most of the time, for most of us, we're gonna get by just breathing. You know, we're just gonna be treading enough water to
just enough to like be just above the water,
And that's life. It's life. But then if you want to be really bold, you can bring on, you know, more external factors that are going to produce stress and make your life harder than it already is. And that's the, you know, 50-pound dumbbells that you're tying to both of your ankles, and it's just making it that much harder. And I'm okay with it, and I love it because I know how good it will feel when I finally get to, you know, pull that knot and let them go. Whether it's me pulling that knot or me getting strong enough to bear it, whatever it is. And the same with the shackles. It will feel so good to let go of those shackles. Whether it's with the money or not, I just want to let go. I just want to run around the world and be who I am, because I want to be the Connor who's, you know, the 7-year-old Connor who just, like, I don't know, that's I envy that person.
Right, like being back to like our more childlike self, right?
Right.
Because we cover them up with these like layers of stuff as we get older, and as society like tells us who to be and how to be and what to do and all this stuff. So as you start peeling back those layers, and what I was saying there is like, you can do that now. You don't have to wait until like you have the money or whatever, right? You can start doing that now and be closer to that 7-year-old you as you're going along this journey.
I'm here now until those shackles come off. I need like 3 certain keys to, you know, unlock those shackles, let go of that weight. And it's like, you know, money is certainly one of them. I definitely want money. And I feel like I've tied money into that 7-year-old self and sort of blended them, because
why do you need money to go be your 7-year-old self?
Because I think it'd make it so much better.
Right.
I think if I could go around and bless people with...
Better, but not necessary.
Perfectly said. Definitely.
Right.
I agree.
So why are you waiting for better if you can't even start at the beginning? And this, I will say this, it does take a little bit of a leap of faith at the beginning. Right, we can try to think our way into like, this is why I should start this thing because it's going to get me exactly this, right? It does take a little bit of that leap of faith to start, and it might not make sense. It might not be in your head worth 30 minutes of your 16-hour workday to like start looking inwards and working on yourself. But you have to convince yourself somehow that it is. Because in 6 months from now, a year from now, those 30 minutes every day will completely transform your future self, right? But that, it does take that little piece. And for me, when I started, it was like, I knew my head was loud. I knew it was crazy. I was like, I can't control my mind. Like, I need something. And I started hearing and reading about how a lot of successful people really talk about meditation being a key part of them, like Tim Ferriss, Oprah Winfrey, Jim Rohn, a lot of them. And the more I heard that, I was like, if they're saying meditation's good, then there's gotta be something to it. And there was that little piece of me that was like, all right, I'm gonna take that little leap of faith and just start. Even if I'm bad at it, even if I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just gonna start this process. So whatever that's gonna be for you, right? It's like, once you have that, then you just get started. Because it's not a like, in the future, then I'll start the thing. That's what it feels like. But then you're just going to keep delaying the process and delaying getting started.
Yeah, that is something that I'm trying to battle. Because it's like, what if I could be there in 3 months? What if I could be there in 4 months, 5 months? What if I could be there in 90, 70, 80, 90 days?
And when you say there, do you mean with the money or with the 7-year-old you?
Sort of more so the money, right? Like, you know, as I said, I have a few keys that I need, and those keys will unlock the weight and let me just flourish into the person
So how long have you been working on the money part?
Technically a few years, but probably seriously, 8 months where I've really been about it.
So what makes you think you'll get it in the next 3 months?
Statistics. And I say a few years because I've spent a few years being in the right place at the wrong time. Wrong place at the right time. And it was and it's like this trinity of things that sort of, it's like 3 puzzle pieces. It's probably more. It's a multitude of pieces that just need to fit together perfectly. And I finally found it. And I'm lucky to have found it. As I said, I'm very fortunate. But I have this burden to capitalize on that luck. And of course, you create that luck by being in the wrong place at the right time, right place at the wrong time, and then you finally hit it. And it works, and you're like, okay, this is cool. I have something. Yeah. And I do have that something now, and now I'm focusing on capitalizing on that luck that I might not get ever again. So I'm just really putting a burden on myself to push through certain things and just juice them out while I can. Because again, I don't know if I'll ever be able to get them. So it's really, at the end of the day, it's a risk reward type of thing. And I would risk drifting further and further from that light, the true person I am. Mm-hmm. But the reward might be way greater than me finding that light. It might be a much brighter light, but there's also the chance that it's shuffleboards, right? I'm trying to get as close to that 4, right? The more I drift off from that light, the more risk I take, the greater that reward might be. And there's also the chance I fall off and I don't find that light or my old light. And then I don't know who the fuck I am anymore.
Yeah. And, or you get that reward and you're like, all right, what's the next one? Mm-hmm. And you've gone so far from that light that you just forget about it.
Great point.
Right? So why not see that light, that younger you, that more authentic you as the reward? And as the way, why is going towards the light going away from the money?
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm battling with. That's what I'm trying to synergize. The true kind of, I should have been kicked out of the elementary school I went to because my first grade teacher was like, your kid's fucking crazy. He cannot pay attention for a single second.
Right. So it's all of the stories you're telling yourself that other people have told you.
Well,
right, could be your whole life, right? That it's like you have to be this way, you have to do this thing. And so in order to achieve success in all those other people's perspectives, you had to do something that was different than what you wanted, right? From how you were. So you had to change who you were and kind of keep him bottled down to go make these other people happy in whatever way.
A little bit, definitely some yes in there, but a little bit of no. That's a good point, and there's a lot of truth in that. But more so, I was going around the lines of, I'm the type of kid who could never work a day in his life. You could throw me into any fucking town in the world. There could be 13 people, there could be 13 million people. I'm gonna be happy. I'm gonna find friends. I'm gonna be resourceful.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make the best of it. You could throw me in the Amazon, and I would just
all right, here I am. Let's go.
I would find a fucking bird, and I'd just be happy. That would be good. The only person stopping you from getting that is yourself, or the person to the right of you who's willing to work hard. It's like, you play your cards right, that's yours.
So
and the only reason it's not is if you think you don't have the will against the person to the right or left of you. And so I've always had this perspective.
So you really internalize that.
Yeah. And I do believe it.
And so, kind of going back to that question, you gotta have that drive, and I agree with that completely. But why is that separate from, finding and being, your true self? Getting close to that light? Why are those opposite directions?
Because there's such a dichotomy between them.
Why?
Because that money side of it, that wanting the best, like, and it has nothing to do with money. It just happens to have something to do with money.
Well, money is like value in society.
And so, like, genuinely, I do like good things.
And so it sounds to me like those are the same direction.
Well, they are, but in order to, there's this little buffer period where I need to put my head down and work 24 hours a day because that's the only way I can get there. And that's where I'm in right now. I'm in that buffer zone where I'm putting in 20-hour days week after week, and it's, makes me miserable, of course. I've lost so much more. I stopped eating. I would eat 5,000 calories a day.
Yeah, because working 20 hours a day is not good for your health.
Of course not.
Right,
but that's the dichotomy. This is where I'm trying to get.
But you feel like you have to do that to get to where you want to go.
I do. I think I need to approach it with a level of speed, and I can't de-accelerate until I've gotten there. And when you get there, it'll be vapor. It'll be air.
You're saying that,
I know,
but like your choices don't reflect that.
Because I don't want to sacrifice slowing down the track that I'm on now for an even faster track, because I think the track I'm on now might just get me there if I push it for another 6 months.
But where's there?
That's a dollar figure. It's definitely a dollar figure. I want to be at that monetary level that suits me and makes me happy.
Yeah.
And it won't make me happy, and I know it won't, but I want to be able to say, okay, I know for sure it doesn't make sense. and that's all I'm doing.
I mean, you say that, but then you're still like going for it with everything and sacrificing your happiness and your authenticity to get it. Mm-hmm. So you do care about money, right? Mentally, you might not, like cognitively, but if you look at where you're spending your time mm-hmm. and how you're prioritizing your health, wealth, and relationships, right? It's like money's clearly at the top. Mm-hmm. And another thing that can happen is you could hit whatever dollar figure and then be like, you know what, I'm gonna go for the next one. And I'm gonna still procrastinate on me doing like my inner stuff. Another thing that could happen is you could like get the money and then at that point realize I'm fucking miserable. And completely you have like lost yourself along the way, right? It's that kind of analogy of people, and this happened to me, dude. You know, you hear like successful people, like they made all this money and they're like, I'm fucking miserable. Or for me, there was this girl that I was chasing in college for years. I literally chased her for years, bro. And she finally said yes, and we started dating. And I was like, I don't feel like what I thought I would feel.
It was the game.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
We're just addicted to that idea. It's
right.
It's the hedonic treadmill thing, where it's like you want a thing, you get it, and you're like, no, I kind of want the next thing, right? That's part of it, right. But then the other part of it is I got the thing, and it's actually not what I wanted.
100%.
But you won't know that, and there's not really a way to know that, I don't think. But if you start doing your work internally and you prioritize that, then you'll bark up less of the wrong trees.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right, because you can climb these ladders, but what if it's on the wrong wall?
Right, 100%. And there's an aspect that I picked up on what you were just saying. You don't get happy from achieving a goal. You literally get positive emotion, like the chemical, from approaching that goal and continuously, incrementally taking steps, getting closer to that goal. Like, okay.
And I would argue, because that's what everyone talks about, right? Tony Robbins talks about happiness is progress. But there's also another aspect of just like being you, which mm-hmm. has nothing to do with progress towards anything. You're just being yourself.
I agree.
And happiness exists there as well. And so why not work towards that?
Because as you work towards that, as you work up towards that, you're working down towards society's perspective of happiness.
Not necessarily. You think so. That's what your brain's telling you. That's the story you're telling yourself, right? That's what we were talking about before, how like these things are in opposite directions, but they're not. But you see them as opposite directions.
I think most of the world sees them as in opposite directions.
Right, but most of the world isn't successful. Most of the world leads a mediocre life, and they're average or below average.
Mm-hmm.
right? Just by definition. And so if you want to be above average, you got to do things everyone else is not doing, and you got to go against the grain. And there's so many things in my life that when I did the against the grain thing, I actually got the results that I wanted.
I just think it takes a lot of sacrifice to get there that people aren't willing, because it's not easy. Because the first step of that
let's define
is sitting on your
sacrifice.
bed and asking yourself the questions that you do not want to ask yourself, because you know you'll get the answer that you do not want to hear, and that's just one of the.
So when you say sacrifice, let's break that down. It sounds like time is you're sacrificing time towards something else.
Sure.
And then you're talking about how it's gonna be uncomfortable and you don't wanna feel that way. But you can go through the fire and ask yourself these questions and do this process to like bring up all these insecurities and then actually let them go. And to let them go, you have to go through that fire. You have to experience them. And that's how you let them go. And as you let them go, they stop affecting you as much and you stop feeling them as much. And so that sacrifice, I actually view as very productive because it's active work that you're doing.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, it's uncomfortable, and that's the piece that most people don't want to feel.
Yeah. No, I
But if you're
agree.
willing and able to be like, you know what, fuck it, I'll do whatever it takes. And if it takes a little bit of discomfort, then it takes a little bit of discomfort. And don't wait. What I would say is, for me, I didn't really start that until I hit rock bottom. And now I was in this place where I was like, my head's fucked up, my emotions are all messed up. I don't know why I'm telling myself these things that I can't do this, that I can't have that. And I was like, this is not okay. Like something's wrong. I gotta work on myself. Mm-hmm. And it was only by hitting rock bottom that I finally planted my feet and was like, I'm gonna start working on this. And that can happen if you keep on going and going and going and striving and going 2x and then finally hitting the money and then like, you know what, I'm gonna keep going for more, right? Like eventually you might hit that rock bottom. And so you're just delaying your growth and your happiness and getting back to that light by keeping down the road.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. For me, like the reason I'm doing that and I'm okay doing that is because I'm betting that kicking down the road is only months down the road, contrary to years down the road. I'd be like, okay, no, I need
mm-hmm.
to start working on my inner self now. But I believe, and I could be so wrong. What do I know? I could be so wrong.
So at what point will you check in with yourself and be like, you know what, I was wrong? Are you gonna put a date on your calendar?
Honestly,
right?
Well, yeah, actually I do. I do have a date on my calendar, like 5-6 months from now.
See, and my brain works the same way, where it can be very black or white. And so you have these two worlds where it's like, I'm either pushing 100% towards making $100,000 a month. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm making $100 a week in some small town. Right? Those are very two extremes.
Mm-hmm.
There's tons of gray area in between.
I hate gray area.
And so this is what it all comes down to, right? All this work is like, it boils down to wanting or not wanting to feel something. And so there's something about these other options that aren't so extreme that makes you uncomfortable. And you said hate, and that's a really strong word. There's an option in there that will work for you, that you will be happy with. But there's something about that middle piece that you hate. And so that is something that you can work to find and let go of that, like hatred towards it. And that's like an example of where the work would start. Because once you don't hate that, you're not going to be in this so black or white. It has to be either this thing way over here or that thing way over there.
Right.
Because that's not reality.
No, but generally that's what I want. You know, generally I don't...
You think that's what you want. That's what your conscious mind is telling you, right?
Sure.
You think you want one of these extremes, but there's plenty of room for happiness in between.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't see it. It's very cloudy, and you hate it, so you're resisting it. There's always a reason. Like, it always boils down to something, right? And so it's and that's where that leap of faith comes in, right? We don't know all of the things that are kind of keeping you from actually being authentically happy and working on your goals at the same time. But that's the goal, is like be there, right?
Yeah.
And so there's something about your conditioning, your programming, that is keeping you doing what you're doing for a reason. There's a survival aspect to it. It's something you learned a long time ago, and it's still running you. It's this unconscious pattern. And as you start to dive into yourself, you start finding these things, you can let go of the ineffective patterns that we might think are helping us but actually aren't. And then you have a lot more mental clarity to actually really go for your goals, but be happy along the way.
Right.
But it takes that leap of faith of like, okay, I'm gonna do this.
Right. As small as that leap of faith might be.
Right, we make it so big. Right, we're like, no, because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're letting go of a little bit of control, or the sense of control. It's not even actual control, it's a sense of perception of control. But it takes that little, just like, okay, let's do it. Right?
Yeah. That's what I'm
And most people don't take that step. And most people are average.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm working on. I'm trying to take that step, and
So what's keeping you from taking that step?
Just me betting on that I'll be able to take that step in 6 months. That's it. I mean, that's it. If someone told me, hey, 2 years from now, you're not gonna have shit, I'd be like, I would take that step. If I believe that, then and as backward.
But what you won't have potentially is your happiness, right? Because if you keep going, and like, if you could put a date on your calendar in 3 months, 6 months from now that says, once this date hits, I'm gonna actually start working myself. If I don't have,
Do you think that's a good idea?
you need to start at some point. Starting is a good idea.
Starting's always the best.
If you're delaying that, then yes, it's a good idea to put an end date on when you're gonna wait. And you said you had something on your calendar for like 5 or 6 months from now, but it's probably not an actual thing, like event on your actual calendar.
October 1st.
Right? Okay, so you got one, October 1st. And so it's very possible, I would say likely, that you could hit October 1st, not be at your number,
More likely than not.
And be like, you know what? I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna make it January 1st. And then you keep going. You keep pushing it. When this whole time you could be spending 20 minutes a day to be doing the work now, like starting today.
What does 20 minutes entail?
Yeah, so at least with the process that I like to put people through, you'd actually start with only 5 minutes a day, just to start building that discipline. So like, we all have 5 minutes a day.
Of course.
Right? Tim Ferriss has a great quote, I fucking love it. He says, if you don't have 10 minutes a day, you need an hour a day. And that kind of hit me. That's part of what started getting me into all this. But pretty sure we all have 5 minutes a day. Will we all choose to take those 5 minutes every day? Is a different question. Right? But with those 5 minutes, you're just building the discipline. It's like, don't worry about what your head is doing, right? It's not focus on your breath or visualize that or ask these questions. No. It's literally just like, just fucking sit there and don't move.
Think or no? Because when I was doing it, when I meditate, the only thing I think about is these little white airways coming in through my nose and out through my mouth. And
so you're focusing on the breath.
Yeah, which is essentially nothing, right? And I'm trying to, keep the wandering mind in that breath, but that thing wanders, bro.
So
that thing is
I said this in another video I made, man. Like,
but it's cool to see where it goes.
In zero part of MindWorks do you ever try to not let your mind wander. Isn't that weird? Against the grain, we use it to our advantage. Just like in wrestling, if you're going against someone who's a little bit bigger than you and they come at you, what do? You try to use their momentum against them, right? Same thing here. Our minds have a ton of momentum. They're thinking so much, but we need to build this mind-body connection so we can start getting to the root of stuff and start letting it go. So how do we do that with this loud, fast, 4x monkey dog mind that's wandering everywhere? We're not going to do that by focusing on the breath. So we start by, the first thing is like we sit there just can you control your body, right? Can you sit and just not move for 5 minutes a day?
Kicking my leg back and forth.
Dude, when I started, I literally was like, I need to sit on my hands. I literally sat on my hands when I started meditating because I was fidgeting, I was adjusting, scratching, all that stuff. So the kind of long-winded answer, kind of bringing it down to answer your question, like we start very simply with just focusing on building that mind-body connection. And then we get to the point where we use our conscious mind to start asking questions to get insights. It's all very logical, very, very linguistic, very cognitive. And then we slowly add another skill and another step and another step to get to the more uncomfortable stuff and start letting go of those. And that's where the real work starts. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it's like you're just driving a car. You're doing all of the things that you kind of learned along the way. So you kind of build up these skill sets first. And that's when it's like, this is very productive because I'm actively letting go of stuff for these 20 minutes a day or however much time you choose to dedicate to it.
Right. I like that a lot. And I'm also very impatient. Like one of my things is trying to be far less expedient than I am. I'm always like, how can I shoot out of the box of reality, do a triple fucking axel, and pop back in front of everyone? And I'm not bad at that. I mean, like I'll probably do it correctly 1 out of every 10 times, and then it's just that one time where I completely disrupt the rules of reality, and it's a win for me, and then that fuels me to go lose 10 times, then I get that win again, and that's one thing with this. Like I do, and it's probably the biggest thing that I've worked on in the last year, and I have worked on it. I'm really proud to be able to say that as bad as I am at it, I'm better than I was a year ago, and it's just taking those incremental steps, which are unbeatable because they're sustainable over a long period of time. It's like, don't wake up at 6 a.m. You know, if you sleep at a 9 every day, do not set your alarm for 6. Set it 1 minute earlier every day for the next half a year, and then you'll be down to 6 a.m. in 180 days.
Is that how you got to like 4 a.m. or 5 a.m.?
No. But because I was impatient with it. Now, luckily, you know, and I still struggle. I mean, when did I get up today? Probably like 6:30. And I went to bed a bit later last night, but I'm just forcing myself to get up because I have to work. But with other things that, you know, aren't so like right in front of my face, I need to get to this now. I'm really trying to slow down. And take baby steps.
You feel like you need to get to this now.
Yeah.
Right, you still have that kind of like anxious, like I need this thing, I need this thing.
Yeah. And you can't do that because, like as you said, when you go to confront the things that you truly need to confront, you need to be equipped with the proper skills, the proper strength to face them. And you do that by starting with meditation for 5 minutes a day, and then tap in this, and then that, and then.
But you can do that quickly if you want to.
I believe so, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like when I was doing this, I kind of went all in. And it's like, cool, I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes a day, several times a day, so I can build this skill faster. And I didn't have me to teach me what to do. I had to figure all this shit out over the past several years.
Right.
And so if you follow this system, it's like, you could spend 5 minutes a day, but if that's not fast enough for you, do 5 minutes a day 10 times a day.
Right.
You know, and you'll move through the thing faster, and you'll build the skill faster, and then you can start spending your 20 minutes a day to actually do the productive work sooner. And you can do that several times a day if you wanted to. When COVID hit, there was nothing else to fucking do. I was doing 2 hours a day. An hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. And then there's other things you can do if you want to start adding in like plant medicines to help you go even faster. But you gotta start with like the basics, right? Just like in business, in sports, you learn the fundamentals. And then you have that skill to like carry you through all the complexities of whatever's going to come in the future. So you can go as fast as you want. You just have to start, right? And once you get started, the sooner you will then have the skill and you can start being productive.
I know, I gotta start.
We all have these things that it's like, I want this, but I'm not doing it. Like, I know this.
Yeah.
And that's something I haven't quite been able to put my finger on, right? It's like, why do humans not do what's good for us? What we know is good for us or would be good for us.
Because it's uncomfortable at first.
I would agree with that to some degree for sure. discomfort. It all comes down to feeling or not wanting to feel something. And
Right.
humans don't like feeling uncomfortable.
My favorite analogy is like the girl at the pool. You want to go talk to her. Like, okay, say you genuinely want to go talk to her. 3 seconds where you might be uncomfortable. 10
Right.
tops.
Yeah.
But chances are it's going to go great 90% of the time. We suffer far more in the imagination than in reality. It's going to go fine.
Man.
You're going to go up and
You
talk
think
to
too
that
much.
woman, and it's going to be uncomfortable for 10 seconds. And then
Yeah.
90% of the time, you get her number. And then you go home, and for the
If
rest
it's
of your
90%
life...
for you, that's pretty good. I don't think most guys get 90%, bro.
70%. whatever their conversion rate is.
Right.
But they go home, and
But you feel better about yourself
You're
for
happy.
having taken.
yeah, and you're happy for the rest of your life. You have no regrets or nothing. So it's that you sacrifice 10 seconds of a maybe an uncomfortable situation. Maybe it's very comfortable.
You use that word again, sacrifice.
Yeah, because you have to sacrifice, and then
But what
you're
are you
comfortable for the rest of
sacrificing?
your life. Well, you're sacrificing those expected few seconds or moments of, whether it's just uncomfortability or suffering, but then you get to be relaxed for the rest of your life. That situation will never be like, oh, like I never went up to her. Or you could not sacrifice those 3 seconds, and then you could not talk to that girl, and you could go home, and then you're going to be uncomfortable.
Beat yourself up.
You're going to be
about it
uncomfortable forever, for eternity, because you'll never get that moment back.
I would reframe it that it's not a sacrifice, because that language makes it be like I'm giving something up.
100%.
But you're not giving something up. You're actually taking a very good, productive step towards being better and to being happy. So
Right.
it's this inaccurate description of the action step that it's a sacrifice, because it's not a sacrifice.
No, you're right. It's just labeled as one. You
But
saw
why
when you
do
went to
you
Tacos.
label it as a sacrifice? Like, I've never heard
I
anybody
don't.
else say it's a sacrifice to go talk to a girl.
I think that's what it is for them. They just haven't articulated it in that language.
But you
Like-
just use that language.
Well, it's not so much for myself. At a certain point, it was.
But
I thought
you
it was a
use
sacrifice.
and it's like you use that word, so it's definitely connected. Like, you definitely believe that at some level, consciously or not.
Yeah, I think there's always a sacrifice to something greater. I think since, look back 3,000 years ago, if you sinned, you killed something. You killed a lamb, you killed something. And like literally every sin you made, you'd be punished if you didn't sacrifice an animal for it. And like back even thousands of years ago, there's always been a little bit meaning in sacrifice, because sacrifice, I think there's just depth and meaning in sacrifice. You're able to you're able to withstand some sort of pressure for something better or whatever it is.
I mean, I'm not against the word sacrifice, but in the context where you were using it, where it's like
It made it seem like a bad thing.
doing something productive is a sacrifice, which is literally like a dichotomy.
You're right. It's not a sacrifice. It's just something you don't want to do, and because you don't want to do it, you're just doing something that's good for you, but we
It
don't
might
like
not feel
doing it.
good.
Right,
We
it
don't
might not
like
feel
it because
good.
it's uncomfortable.
Maybe it's just sacrificing that feeling that you're gonna get when you first step into it. That's what you're sacrificing. The feeling
I
of
think it's
uncomfortability.
less of a sacrifice. It's more of an avoidance.
You're avoiding.
You're avoiding
yeah.
the uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah.
Right? Again, one perspective I'm taking is everything comes down to feeling something or not feeling something at some level. And so if it's the girl, or if it's the meditation, or if it's whatever, it's like, I'm not doing it because I don't want to feel something. Or I'm doing this other thing because I want to feel something. Or I'm doing this thing because I don't want to feel something. Right? Like, people keep smoking because they're addicted, and if they stop, they're going to feel uncomfortable, withdrawals, whatever it is. And they don't want to feel that. And so they keep on the nicotine.
Right.
And so it's this thing of like, if you can accept and realize consciously that there's this feeling, ooey gooey emotional aspect to all of this stuff, and in order to grow you have to go through it, and that's going to be uncomfortable at some point. And then you have to realize it's not going to kill you. It's going to be a little uncomfortable, yes, because it is. but it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to kill you. And once you go through that and you let yourself feel it, you will be better on the other side.
Always,
right? And that's the process, is just you keep doing that. And just like cold plunges, just like going to the gym, just like the sauna, if you can keep going through that for the first few times, you start to realize actually it feels pretty good to get to the other side.
100%.
And then you start to be like, I do want to feel this and I do want to keep going.
You twist it. Right?
And
That's a very, very dangerous place to get to. I mean,
it's
you can
a
do
good
a lot.
dangerous.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
But you can be a weapon. I mean,
and not everyone is, but the fact that once they get to that point, but the fact that you have this drive in you and this energy, you would be a weapon.
Right.
Because you're not going to have these shackles chained to your feet anymore.
Right.
And you know you have this drive to stay head above water with 50-pound dumbbells on your feet. So there's also this aspect of kind of like, what am I capable of?
Definitely.
Right? And like, am I even maybe scared of my own potential and my own energy? But once you start tapping into it, you get closer to that light and you have more of your authenticity and you're more raw you. And you have all this energy, bro, you'll be a weapon. So it's a disservice to not start to yourself, because
it's a good way to put it.
Because otherwise you're holding yourself back. And this is something that I've been trying to do, is like, I know I'm doing a career that I don't like, that I don't want to keep doing in the future. I need to start finding who I am more authentically so that I can be that more authentic me.
Good way to put it, it's a disservice not to be.
It's a disservice to your authentic self, which is that younger version of you.
Yeah.
That 7-year-old, however old, Connor, right? You're just getting farther and farther away from that guy.
But it is interesting, and I have not came close, well, maybe, but I don't think I've came close to pinpointing where it came from, but 2.5, maybe like 4 months ago, when I was in the same position I'm in now, but I hadn't fully committed to like, okay, you're gonna work 18, 19, 20 hours a day. Like I was a lot more lost then than I was, putting in a 20-hour day for the last 2 months. And I feel like I found myself a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that's because I've alleviated all distractions. I don't care what you think, what you drive, what you're doing, what she's doing. Like, I've put a goal in front of my face and I've been charging forthrightly for it. And in a way that has actually helped me out a lot. And I'm still trying to figure out the correlation between that and how I've maybe found myself a little bit closer to that light over the last month or two. And maybe it is just alleviating distractions. Like when you care about one thing so much and you actually stop giving a damn about everything else, you find yourself a little bit more, because you're not trying to cater for him, or you're not trying to tailor yourself for that person. I'm just being me. Like I'm going to war against myself. I'm trying to create this really cool outcome for myself, and I don't care at all about anything else. And there's good and bad to that, but one thing that's been super cool is I have found myself a little bit more through it. And again, as I said earlier, it might not be that I'm going closer to that old light that I need to find. It might just be that I'm not going so far away so quickly. I might just have slowed down the process of which I was moving away from it. And that in itself, in its essence, makes me feel like I'm moving closer to it.
Because you're not moving as far away from it as quickly as before.
Yeah. It's just because I de-accelerated, and acceleration is everything. We don't.
Yeah.
That's why.
And so, wouldn't it feel even better to start going towards the light?
Probably be ineffable. I can't even imagine how great that would feel.
Yeah.
But I'm.
And that's where that leap of faith comes in.
That's what. Correct.
When you're ready to start, when people say like, time heals all wounds and time does all this stuff, it's like, okay, bullshit. Time doesn't do anything. It just passes. But one thing time will do is, if you are conscious and you're thinking about this stuff, at some point there could come a point in time where it's like, I'm fucking tired of having spent this much time in my past not being authentic or being in this career that I don't like. And so then time becomes more concrete because it's been the past 10, 15 years of our lives, and you're like, fuck, I do not want to spend the next 15 the way I spent the last 15. And that can be like a trigger for some people to be like, all right, let me start figuring this shit out.
And that's one thing that when that October 1st time frame comes around, it will really hit me, because
how do you know that though?
I don't, but I think it will, because I am really, like, I'll stay up.
But thinking is part of the problem.
I think a lot.
So do I.
I
overthink a lot, and I couldn't help it. Like, I couldn't turn off overthinking. That's why I started this whole process. Because I was like, I can't control my mind. And it's negative, and I can't control the negativity. And that's a problem.
I get very scared that I won't reach what I'm trying to reach, not because what I won't get if I don't get there. It's not about what I won't get if I don't get there. It's about what I'm giving up on right now that I'll never get back. I'm 19 years old. I could be like, I should be living my life as a 19-year-old. I should be doing the things that I want to do. Should, right. and that might be just worldly presupposition that we all have.
That's societal norms.
Yeah.
But you're not in the societal norm.
Sure, and I can't compare myself to the societal norm. Not if I want to be the societal norm, and if I want to have a different outcome, then my actions can't be the same.
But you can compare yourself to the societal norm to know that you don't want to be the societal norm.
Definitely. Great point.
So you can use that to your advantage too. You're like, I want to be the king on top of the mountain with the view. That's not the norm. And you can only get there by being like, I don't want to be that.
Right. But of course there is still, being 19 and going taking a run on the beach.
Yeah. So how do you balance where you're at with what you want?
I have no clue. Okay. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah.
So. And then I'm trying to balance, do I want to figure that out? Or do I just want to stay on this fast track and think that I'll get to the answer in 6 months, which is probably not the case, but I'd like to think it is. And
why do you like to think it is?
Yeah,
it's less uncomfortable.
And in a perfect world, I would get both things that I want.
And it probably feels like progress more so than the other thing.
Right, because it is, and again, this is what I was saying, it is more so progress, and it's progress in the eyes of the world. It's progress in the eyes of the world, and what we're doing here, but then you'll have a counterpoint to this, where I'd say when you're working within yourself, you're working on something, and I mentioned that point, as you're spending time working on you now here, you're being less glorified in the eyes of the world, and more so just in the eyes, and you're glorified.
So you do care about what other people think?
Of course, yeah, I care about what other people think to an extent. I think we don't care about what other people think to an extent. I don't feel judged. No one could judge me.
So what comes up for you if it's like, I spend an hour a day on myself meditating on my inner world. My buddy comes over, knocks on my door. I don't answer because I'm meditating. And he kind of peeks through the window and he sees me sitting there doing my inner work. What do you think he's thinking?
And I don't care about that. More so what I was saying was, I think for a lot of people that'd be the case. I don't care how people judge me, but in a way...
But you do care about the societal ideas of making inner progress versus outer progress.
Yes, right. And that's, I think there's...
So you want that validation.
To that.
It's like you want that acceptance. Or
I would say,
or being looked up to.
I would say, I think that is, if you become very successful in here, it'll be less validated to the world. If you become more successful out here, you have the cars, you have this, you have that, the lifestyle that is perceived by the best.
You get less googly eyes from people.
Right. And you get, you're very validated by them. So that, what I was saying was, and you would say, by working in here, it's going to synergize and it's going to propel you in a way you could have never comprehended or imagined and it's going to excel you into the eyes of the world because it'll excel your business, your lifestyle, your life in general, your family, your wealth, your status, and I do agree with that. But I think again, the buffer zone where when you sit down to really just truly work on yourself, you're going to stop propelling yourself into the eyes of the world and where they're looking, because they're all looking up at this one thing. And like you can propel yourself up there and get to the top of that so they all see you, or you can be behind their heads propelling up into this other area that they don't glorify,
the
but
thing
really
that they're looking
getting
at,
way higher.
the thing that they're looking at, they're not actually looking at your peak because you're not there yet. You're trying to get to this place that you think everyone is looking, which is the top of some achievement, some mountain. But as you put yourself out there, you tell your story, you put content out on social media, that's what people are watching. So actually what people are watching is the journey. And then at some point, yeah, you might have the car or whatever, and then they're going to see that too. And you get some people which will only just start seeing you at the point where you have the thing and that external success, and they're like, man, I want that. But if you put yourself out there along the journey, you're going to get the people who've seen you along the way, and they're going to be like, man, he fucking earned that. Instead of the people that then just are jealous and envious because they see you have a thing that means some sort of status.
Sure, you're right.
But it's very empty, and you don't even want to be friends with those people.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to be good relationships for you to have because they're just going to like you just for the car, the McLaren, or the house. Right? It's the people that have seen your journey along the way that are going to be the better relationships to have. And so why even care what those, other people down in the future?
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's not even that I care about them, because I don't. And I don't care about driving around in a cool car and cars are different because I love cars. I like going fast. Yeah. I like feeling when my heart's going to pop out of his chest. I feel like the wheels might just spin out under me when I'm going 170 on the freeway and I'm just going to blow up. I love that. But either way, say it is the car, right? I don't care about person X, Y, or Z looking at me and seeing me in a cool car that they wish they had. I don't get anything out of that. I get nothing from that. But
it's more like an internal thing.
My internal thing is still catered and tailored to what the world glorifies. Naturally, because that's everything that's around me. So inevitably,
it's programmed that way.
I am programmed that way to push towards
society.
Those things, but I am fortunate and lucky enough to know, very lucky, that I know that is meaningless. I know the truth is this path, is finding myself, building my relationship with Jesus, and just working on myself. And again, being that...
Well, again, why are those two different things? Why not both?
My perception of it is that they just completely repel each other. I think it's possible. It's a beautiful thing. But I think it's very hard to not separate those two things. I think it can be done, and I think if you can do it, it's amazing and it's blissful and it's a life that we all want and couldn't even comprehend having. But for me, and maybe it isn't for everyone, but for me personally, it's hard to separate those two things.
It's not hard, it's just challenging. And it's unknown, but isn't it worth working towards that? What are the benefits of working towards finding how these two aren't actually repelling each other, but actually help one another? Isn't that worth working for?
Mm-hmm. It is. It's just blurry for me.
Yeah, I'm just sure. It's unknown.
Yeah.
There's that leap of faith again.
I'm the biggest advocate for leaps of faith. I think there's no better option in your life than just start whatever it is you want to start, because by starting, you might be going in the absolute opposite direction of where you need to be going. Checked off, you're never going to go there again. And by starting, you will inevitably find yourself going in the absolute exact and perfect path that you need to be going down. And it's going to be by checking off boxes. Can't go this way, can't go that way, never going to go there again. And then you're just going. Then you go here and you find a path. And you're like, this is it. Great, I'm good. And then you find a side trail. Go off on the side trail, opens up to a new path. Okay, this is it. And by going, you just inevitably keep narrowing down that path that is so right for you. People are always just sitting there thinking, all right, the path's going to come.
They put a date on their calendar and say, I'll do this later.
Yeah, and when I see the path, I'll jump on it. Yeah, you won't. You'll sit on the sidelines your entire life.
Yeah.
You just need to go. Start playing.
You just start the journey.
Yeah. And
because then you're always on it.
Yeah.
And so then when you have the money, when you've reached whatever that number is, cool, I have this money and I am 6 months along my journey already. Great,
Yeah.
like this is even better than
100%.
having the money and not knowing where to fucking start.
Right. And by starting the journey, you know, and by sitting on the sidelines waiting for, you know, whatever it is, you're gonna, might not be prepared when it comes up. If you start now, you fail, you learn. You get
So
better.
what are you waiting for?
Then you're ready to go to war when it actually does come up. But then there's a burden on top of that, because there's only one thing worse than not doing what is right. And that's knowing what is right and still not doing it. And that's where I found myself a lot. Like I would rather be the person who is lost and doesn't know what the right thing is to do and then not do the right thing, than be the person who knows exactly what the right thing is and still
not
doesn't do it. That's way worse.
And that's what I brought up earlier. It's like that's the piece about humanity that I still don't fully understand at a deep level, is why do we have that? Like, why do we know the thing that's good for us and we still don't do it? I think discomfort's a part of it.
It definitely is.
I think it's a shift. There's got to be like an identity piece to it. You know, like an ego thing. A lot of things come down to ego.
Definitely.
Right? So like there's an ego piece, there's an uncomfortable piece, there's a identity piece, like a shift.
Right, like being an imposter,
Yeah.
but I think there's an part of being an imposter that is really healthy. I think everyone needs to be an imposter for a tiny bit when starting something. It's like when you get promoted to a new job, you can be an imposter for a week or two, and you'll learn the ropes and you'll know what you're doing. But there's gonna be a buffer period where you don't know what you're doing. You're just in this position that you're not probably qualified for, and you don't feel like, you know, you're good enough for it. Maybe you just aren't good enough for it. You think you are good enough for it. Whatever it is, there's this period where, you know, okay, like
Period for a couple weeks.
Yeah, it could be a couple weeks or it could be a couple years, depending on the degree of what it is. But like, if you have all your friends who, like, you know, you guys go out every Friday night, every Saturday night, then for a tiny bit, you're gonna feel uncomfortable being the person that you're not. By staying in, you're the person who goes out every single weekend. That is you. You've been doing that for 10 years.
You have
Stop
been.
trying to say that isn't you, because that is you.
Right.
And if you want to not be that, then you have to not be you for a few weeks.
You have to change that.
And then a few months of not being you.
Or you
that
just
will become
change that your identity. You just choose, you know what, I'm going to stop being somebody who goes out every Friday.
Yeah.
And I'm now going to be somebody who stays in and works on whatever I work on every Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And you just decide that. It's
Feel
not
like-
necessarily an imposter thing.
Right. I think people feel like they might be, though. Like,
Yeah,
people are
no,
looking at me differently.
people
Who
feel
say,
like it's
"Come on, like,
detaching
that's
from their
not you, bro.
identity.
Dog, like, you were doing coke with me 2 weekends ago. Stop trying to act like you're something.
Right, so now it's back to caring what other people think, right? And
it always does to an extent.
And to an extent, yeah, and this is what happens, right? Like, we are raised in a society, by society, and by our parents, and by whoever, our teachers, that we have to work on ourselves for all this external stuff, right? For what our friends think of us, for the car, for, you know, the money, for all this stuff. We're always taught to, like, do all these things externally. And look at our 5 senses. All 5 of them are about things outside of us. So we are pretty much wired to always be focused on external things, including what other people think. But we have this almost like a 6th sense, which is our attention, which you can put internally. And so you were talking earlier about, like, getting rid of the distractions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how that's made you more calm and brought you less, you're decelerating your distance from the light. Part of this whole process is you start to get rid of all those other senses and all those things externally. And you take this attention, this 6th sense of yours, and you put it internally. And you kind of let all these other things not distract you anymore. And as you do that, you're doing what no one else is doing. You're doing the opposite of the masses. You're doing the against the grain work, which is productive, to turn your attention inwards instead of the one attention you have, which is your attention, the one sense you have. You're turning that inwards instead of all these other senses that are going external.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful, especially once you start doing, like, a system that works.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. That's probably 90% of what it is. To answer my question that I said I can't find the correlation between me finding myself and not, it's me putting my attention on, even if it's not myself in particular, but even just being one thing that's not myself, is alleviating all those other things I'm paying attention to, inevitably allowing me to pay attention to myself. And if you were able to just pay attention to yourself, you're, like what they might, monk mode or whatever you want to call it. There is something that's
if you go all
so beautiful about that.
Everyone, I would think, at their core is good.
Agreed.
But a lot of us start covering that up and we get traumatized and we have pain and we can turn like more evil, for lack of a better word, early. And once that happens, it's work to get back. The work is worth it.
Yeah.
Because then you get back to being happy and like being more you.
Right.
But we cover it up and we wear these masks.
And it's easy to cover it up. It's easy to pour a bunch of glue all over yourself, but when that glue dries, it's not so fun.
It's easy to put a Band-Aid on a thing.
Right.
But if what you have to do is actually like dig in and pull out a bullet.
The truth. It is. It's the hard truth. Even though it's actually pretty nice to hear.
Yeah, and it's something that it surprises me, to be honest. Out of all of the work that I've done, out of all of the therapists, coaches that I've talked to and that I've hired over the years, only one guy has that same attitude of removing things. Everyone else is just like, let's just talk about stuff, or start doing this thing, start doing this habit, or start meditating with just in general. And it's like, I need a system to remove the things. And that's like my whole process, right? That's the whole point of it, is removing the attachments. And it's a how-to. It's a very systematic how-to. It's not a theory. It's let it go. Just visualize. No, like it's very practical. And that's why I say it's productive, because it's just different, and I haven't seen anybody else have that approach, which surprises me. Like, why am I the one that has this thing that's like removing the negativity? Like, no one else, I guess, thinks that way. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Maybe you're just a top human. Maybe that's it.
I can't disagree with that.
No.
Oh, man.
It's all good stuff.